welcome to Pharma Pro Podcast.
Okay, I've heard of that one.
Yeah, it's
pretty popular.
yeah, and they've got this motto: listen to learn, apply to grow, master to lead.
Catchy.
Yeah, it is right.
Yeah.
Today, we are diving deep into a process I bet you never even think about, but one that directly impacts your health.
It does.
Drug stability testing.
Yeah, it's an area most people don't really think about.
Right.
But it is a cornerstone of pharmaceutical science.
Yeah.
And there's this global standard that we use called ICH Q1A R2.
Huh.
And this is really what helps ensure that your medications are safe and effective.
Okay.
Not just when they're made, but, even after sitting on the shelf for a while.
Okay, so ICH, International Council for Harmonization, they're like the UN of drug regulations, right?
Right.
Making sure everyone's playing by the same rules.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This harmonization is really vital because it means that a drug that's approved in, say, Europe
Right.
can be confident that it meets the same rigorous standards
Okay.
for stability in the U.S. or Japan or anywhere else. So it really streamlines global drug development
Yeah.
and ultimately benefits everyone.
Benefits all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's talk about stability testing itself. I'm imagining the scientists in lab coats meticulously checking every single pill.
Right.
What does this process actually look like?
It's less about checking every single pill
Okay.
and more about understanding how the drug in its purest form, what we call the drug substance,
Okay.
reacts to various conditions.
Okay.
It's like putting it through a series of stress tests,
Oh, wow.
exposing it to heat, humidity, light, even extreme pH levels.
Wow, that sounds intense.
Yeah.
Why put the drug through all of that before it even becomes like a pill or a liquid?
Think of it as detective work.
Okay.
We need to identify the drug's vulnerabilities, its potential weaknesses early on.
Right.
How does it break down? What are the byproducts?
Okay.
This all helps us determine, the best way to formulate that final product, what we call the drug product,
Yeah.
and then how to package it to ensure maximum stability.
So they're basically trying to make the drug go bad
Mm-hmm.
on purpose to understand how to keep it good in the long run.
Precisely.
Okay.
By understanding its degradation pathways, we can predict how a drug will perform months or even years down the line.
Yeah.
And that prediction is critical for setting those expiration dates and storage instructions you see on your medication labels.
That makes sense. So once they've tortured the drug substance,
Right.
figured out all its secrets,
Uh-huh.
then they move on to the actual product, right?
Exactly.
Tablets, the capsules, the injections, all that.
Now the testing becomes even more rigorous.
Okay.
We're talking long-term studies where the drug product is stored at, standard conditions, like room temperature and controlled humidity.
Okay.
And then there's accelerated testing where we crank up the heat and humidity
Oh.
to simulate faster aging.
So it's like fast forwarding the clock to see how the drug would behave
Yeah.
years down the line. But why do both?
Yeah.
Why not just do the long-term testing?
Accelerated testing gives us a quicker snapshot of potential issues,
Oh.
helps us identify red flags early on.
Got it.
But it's the combination of both the accelerated and long-term data
Okay.
that allows us to really accurately predict shelf life and ensure safety and effectiveness for the consumer.
This is making me realize that expiration date
Yeah.
isn't just some random date stamped on the bottle. There's actual science behind it.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the drug itself.
Okay.
You'd be surprised how much the packaging plays a role in all this.
Really?
We call it the container closure system,
Okay.
and it's carefully chosen to protect the drug from things like moisture and light.
Wait, really? I always assumed that the packaging was just for convenience,
Right.
not actually impacting the medicine itself.
Well, think about it. Some medications are incredibly sensitive to light.
Okay.
That's why you see protect from light instructions on certain labels.
Right.
The type of container, whether it's a glass vial or a blister pack, plays a huge role in preserving the drug's integrity over time.
Okay. That makes total sense.
Okay.
So we've got the stress tests on the drug substance.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the long-term and accelerated studies on the drug product,
Right.
all while factoring in the packaging.
Yeah.
All this to determine the shelf life.
It's a multifaceted process, that's for sure.
Yeah.
You're right. Determining the shelf life is a key goal,
Okay.
but it's not a one-and-done situation.
Right.
Scientists are constantly monitoring stability,
Really?
even after a drug is approved and on the market.
Hold on. Even after it's available for people to use, what does that monitoring even look like?
Well, companies have what are called stability commitments,
Okay.
which means that they continue to test batches of the drug even after it's on the market. This helps confirm those initial predictions about shelf life and ensures that the drug remains stable and effective,
Right.
in the real world.
Okay.
Because remember, conditions in a warehouse might be different than in someone's medicine cabinet.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
This is all blowing my mind a little bit. It's way more complex than I ever imagined.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to see how crucial all of this is.
It's all about patient safety at the end of the day.
Of course.
And speaking of safety, we haven't even touched on how different storage conditions, like refrigeration or freezing, play into all of this.
Yeah.
And that adds another layer of complexity to stability testing.
You're right. I'm curious about that.
Yeah.
But before we go there, why don't we take a quick break and then we'll come back to explore those storage challenges.
Sounds great.
Awesome.
Let's do it.
All right, so before the break, we were talking about how different storage conditions can really shake things up in the world of drug stability testing.
They certainly do.
Yeah.
It's not just about room temperature anymore.
Right.
Many medications require specific storage, like refrigeration or even freezing,
Right.
to maintain their stability and effectiveness.
So let's start with the fridge. What are some of the challenges with medications that need to be kept chilled?
Well, the obvious one is temperature control.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just say, store in the refrigerator. We
Yeah.
need to be much more precise.
Okay.
The ICH Q1A R2 guideline actually recommends long-term testing at a very specific temperature, 5 degrees Celsius,
Okay.
to simulate typical refrigerator conditions.
Makes sense, but things happen, right? Like power outages
Yeah.
or someone accidentally leaving the medication out on the counter.
Uh-huh.
How does stability testing account for like those real-world mishaps?
That's where the concept of temperature excursions comes in.
Oh, okay.
Scientists deliberately expose the medication to higher temperatures for specific periods
Okay.
to see how it reacts. Think of it like a stress test for those oops moments.
So they're basically simulating those times when the medication might temporarily be outside its ideal temperature range.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if the drug shows significant changes during those excursions, it could mean stricter storage instructions are needed or even a reformulation of the drug itself.
Wow. So even a short time outside the fridge could potentially impact a medication's effectiveness.
In some cases, yes, it all depends on the drug's specific properties
Okay.
and how sensitive it is to those temperature fluctuations. That's why those labels are so important. They're not just suggestions.
Yeah.
They're based on solid scientific data to ensure that you're getting the most out of your medication.
Okay, fridge is one thing, but what about medications that need to be kept even colder, like in the freezer? Does that same logic apply?
It does, but it gets even trickier.
Okay.
Long-term testing for frozen medications is done at -20 degrees Celsius.
Okay.
But simulating accelerated conditions for frozen drugs is a bit more challenging.
Right, because you can't exactly go much colder.
You can't really go much colder than -20.
Yeah.
Right.
So how do they stress test frozen medications if they can't really make it colder?
The focus shifts to those temperature excursions again. They might test a single batch at, say, 5 degrees.
Okay.
Or even 25 degrees for a certain amount of time.
Got it.
To simulate those periods when a frozen drug might partially thaw.
So they're looking at what happens when a frozen medication warms up a bit, even for a short time.
Precisely.
Okay.
This helps determine if a brief thawing period is a major concern,
Right.
or if the drug can tolerate some degree of temperature fluctuation without compromising its quality.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, what about those like super rare medications that need to be stored at extremely low temperatures, like below -20 Celsius?
Right.
We're talking cryogenic levels here.
That's getting into specialized territory.
Yeah.
And the ICH guideline acknowledges that there isn't a one-size-fits-all approach for those extreme situations.
Right.
Testing strategies need to be tailored to the specific drug and its unique properties.
So it's like the Wild West of drug stability testing.
In a sense, yes.
Yeah.
It's fascinating because it pushes the boundaries of our understanding of drug stability and requires a much more individualized approach.
This is all so incredibly intricate.
It is.
I never realized how much thought and scientific rigor goes into something as seemingly simple as like determining a medication's shelf life
Yeah.
and storage instructions.
It's easy to take those labels for granted, but they represent years of research and testing.
Yeah.
And all of that is ultimately designed to ensure that when you need a medication, it works as intended.
Speaking of those labels, we've talked about how they're informed by all this testing,
Yeah.
but I'm curious about some of the specifics. What are some of the key things those labels need to communicate to ensure proper storage and handling?
Great question. The label is really the culmination of all that stability data we've been discussing.
Right.
It needs to clearly state the recommended storage temperature,
Right.
whether it's room temperature, refrigeration, or freezing.
Okay.
And it needs to be specific,
Right.
not just cool place,
Yeah.
but an actual temperature range.
Right, because cool can mean very different things to different people.
Exactly. We need to be precise to avoid any ambiguity.
Yeah.
The label also needs to specify protection from light if the drug is photosensitive,
Okay.
and any special handling instructions like shake well before use for suspension.
So it's like a condensed version of that entire stability profile.
Yeah,
Translated into clear, actionable instructions for the end user.
precisely.
Okay.
And following those instructions is crucial.
Right.
It's the final link in the chain,
Hmm.
ensuring that all that scientific rigor translates into a safe and effective medication for the patient.
Okay, so we've talked about the different storage conditions, the importance of those label instructions.
Mm-hmm.
But before we wrap up this deep dive,
Mhm.
I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, those stability commitments
Yeah.
from pharmaceutical companies. Can you elaborate on that a bit more?
Of course, remember, stability testing doesn't stop once a drug is approved and on the market.
Right.
Pharmaceutical companies have an ongoing responsibility to
Uh-huh.
monitor the stability of their products.
So it's not just like a one-time check off the box kind of thing.
Not at all.
Okay.
These commitments involve continuing to test batches of the drug,
Okay.
even after it's available to patients.
Got it.
They're looking for any changes over time, any signs that the drug might be degrading faster than predicted.
So it's like an ongoing quality control check
Exactly.
to ensure the drug remains stable and effective throughout its shelf life.
Exactly. And it's an important safeguard. Remember, real-world conditions can be unpredictable.
Right.
There might be fluctuations in storage temperatures, exposure to humidity, or even variations in manufacturing processes that could impact stability.
This is making me realize how much trust we place in those little bottles of medicine.
Yeah.
We assume they'll work as intended.
Right.
But there's like a whole world of science and ongoing monitoring happening behind the scenes to make that possible.
It's a testament to the dedication and rigor of the pharmaceutical industry,
Yeah.
and it highlights the importance of those regulations and guidelines, like ICH Q1A R2 that set the bar for drug stability testing globally.
Well said. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from stress tests to temperature excursions to ongoing stability commitments.
We have.
But before we wrap up, I want to touch on one more crucial aspect of all of this, and that is data.
Sure.
We've mentioned data collection throughout this deep dive, but I'm curious about the sheer volume of information involved.
Ah, yes. The data is really the foundation of everything we've been discussing.
Yeah.
It's not just about collecting it, it's about analyzing it, interpreting it, and drawing meaningful conclusions from it.
So we're talking mountains of data points,
Like
right?
it.
Temperatures,
Well-
humidity levels, chemical analyses,
Absolutely.
all meticulously recorded and analyzed over time.
Exactly. And it's not just about one batch of the drug either.
Right.
Multiple batches are tested to ensure that the data is representative and reliable.
Okay.
We're talking gigabytes, even terabytes of data for a single drug.
That's mind-boggling what kind of tools and techniques are used to make sense of all that information.
Scientists use sophisticated statistical software to analyze trends, identify outliers, and determine if any changes are statistically significant.
Right.
They're looking for patterns, correlations, anything that might indicate a potential stability issue.
So it's like a giant data puzzle, and they're piecing it together to create a complete picture of the drug's stability profile.
That's a great analogy.
Okay.
And that profile is what informs everything from the shelf life to the storage instructions to those ongoing stability commitments.
Okay, so we've got the science, the regulations, the data. It's all coming together now.
It is.
But I'm still curious about how this all plays out in practice with real-world medications.
That's a perfect segue. In the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore some specific examples of how these principles are applied to different types of medications,
That's great.
from tablets and capsules to liquids and injectables.
Awesome.
It'll bring everything we've discussed to life.
This goes good. Can't wait. Let's take another quick break, and we'll be right back with part 3. All right, so we've journeyed through this intricate world of drug stability testing,
We have.
from those initial stress tests to the mountains of data analysis.
Yeah.
And now it's time to kind of bring it all home to see how these principles actually play out in the medications we use.
Exact.
Because knowing a drug is stable in a lab is one thing,
Right.
but understanding what that means for that bottle of pills in our medicine cabinet
Yeah,
is another.
absolutely. So let's start with something familiar, tablets.
Okay.
Those little pills might seem simple,
Right.
but even they have their own kind of stability quirks.
I'm all ears. What are some of the things that can go wrong with tablets over time?
One of the biggest challenges is moisture.
Okay.
Some tablets are like little sponges. They absorb moisture from the air.
Really?
We call them hygroscopic.
So the opposite of those little silica gel packets you find in shoe boxes.
Exactly. Instead of absorbing moisture, the tablets themselves become the moisture magnets.
Got it.
And if a tablet absorbs too much moisture, it can become soft, crumbly, or even disintegrate.
Oh, wow.
That's why packaging is so crucial.
Okay.
Those blister packs with the foil backings,
Right.
those bottles with the tight-fitting lids, they're all designed to keep moisture out.
And I'm guessing those store in a cool, dry place instructions are more than just a suggestion.
Absolutely not. Those instructions are directly informed by stability testing.
Okay.
They're telling you the optimal conditions to keep those tablets happy and effective.
Okay, so moisture is a big one. What else can impact tablet stability?
Another challenge is chemical degradation.
Okay.
Over time, the active ingredients in a tablet can break down into other compounds, some of which might be less effective, or in some cases even harmful.
So it's not just about the tablet falling apart, it's about the actual chemistry changing over time.
Precisely.
Wow.
And scientists use very sensitive analytical methods to track those changes, to measure the levels of those breakdown products.
Okay.
If those levels get too high, it means the tablet's shelf life is coming to an end. Hence the expiration date.
This is making me look at my medicine cabinet in a whole new light. So tablets have their challenges. What about liquid medications?
Yeah.
Those seem even more delicate.
They can be, especially solutions, suspensions, and emulsions.
Okay.
Each has its own set of stability hurdles.
Okay, quick refresher. What's the difference between those again?
A solution is a clear liquid where the drug is completely dissolved. Think of salt water.
Okay.
A suspension has tiny drug particles floating throughout the liquid,
Okay.
but they're not dissolved. It's like shaking up a snow globe.
Got it.
And an emulsion is a mixture of oil and water that don't fully blend, like, say, salad dressing.
Ah, that's right. So what are the stability landmines with these liquid meds?
Well, solutions can be prone to chemical breakdown
Okay.
or changes in pH over time. Suspensions can settle, meaning those drug particles sink to the bottom.
Got it.
Leading to inconsistent doses
Okay.
and emulsions, well, they can separate.
Like that salad dressing.
Just like the salad dressing, making the medication uneven and potentially less effective.
So I'm guessing stability testing is crucial for figuring out how to prevent all of that from happening.
Absolutely. They'll experiment with different formulations, different types of packaging, different storage conditions,
Wow.
all to find the best combination for preserving the quality of the medication.
It's like a whole separate science within the science of pharmaceuticals.
It really is, and it's not just tablets and liquids.
Right.
Inhalers, creams, injectables.
Wow.
Each type of medication presents its own set of stability challenges.
Okay.
And those challenges need to be addressed through rigorous testing.
This is making me realize just how much goes into making sure that when I pick up a medication, it's actually going to do what it's supposed to do.
That's exactly right. And it's all thanks to the tireless work of scientists, researchers, and regulatory agencies around the world who are dedicated to ensuring the safety and effectiveness of the medications we rely on.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into drug stability testing.
We have.
From those initial stress tests to those final label instructions, it's been quite a journey.
It has, and I hope it's given our listeners a newfound appreciation for the complexity and importance of this often overlooked aspect of healthcare.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up, what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with?
I think the next time you reach for that bottle of pills or that vial of medicine, take a moment to think about the incredible journey it took to get there.
Yeah.
From the lab bench to the pharmacy shelf, years of research and rigorous testing went into ensuring that that medication is safe, effective, and ready to help you feel better when you need it most.
And that is a great note to end on.
It is.
So folks, next time you see that expiration date or those storage instructions, remember, they're not just there for show. They represent a whole world of science working to keep you healthy. Until next time, stay curious.